Welcome to Bandit's Keep Actual Play. I'm Daniel. We are continuing our original Dungeons & Dragons with Chainmail and Outdoor Survival campaign I've been running. You could almost call this Phase 2. All three of my parties have gone out and, to some extent, come back. We had a little bit of a break here because I was busy with life and with GaryCon, so I'm actually starting to record these again on April 15th, so some time has gone by and I'm using one-to-one time, so that's when we're going to start. Now, I had put a question out when the Foxes came back with the lone hobbit that came back and survived. Got some interesting answers. These people that are hiring the parties, they're not like they're masters, for lack of better words, so the whole punishing of the hobbit didn't seem right to me. Also, I got a really interesting message from my friend Joe Richter, who does the Hindsightless podcast, and he mentioned that, okay, whatever the patron is saying, but what about the hobbit? They just saw their whole group get slaughtered, and they went through all the stuff. Like, would they even want to adventure? So, you know what? I rolled a couple of dice, and I decided that they would, but they wanted to take a bit of a break. The patron agreed that was fine, and right now the map is they're planning, right? They're reassembling a new group. So actually that hobbit has traveled a bit and joined with another group for a temporary adventure. So I decided to do a bit of a side quest. I took the Fangs, who only had 3 characters remaining, and added the hobbit to this group to form a little side quest. And I go over how I do this in the actual place, so we'll get to the board, but basically those 4 characters are going out on a little bit of a mission, not hired by anybody, but from a rumor they found. Okay, so it is April 15th. I'm doing one-to-one time in this when people aren't in the field, so there was a bit of a break since I was prepping for GaryCon and just got a little busy, but in any case, I like to leave them at least a month's rest, which would have been March 18th would have been the earliest they could have went out, so they've had about 2 months. Now, what I'm going to do, as I'm playing this out, I have to obviously make up my own rules as I go. So once a party has established their starting point, so in this case, the Fangs start over here, that's just where they're always going to start, no matter where the maps are and stuff. And I want to point out a couple of things I'm using, because I get lots of questions about stuff, so I'll just point it out now. If I use something and you want to know what it is, just let me know in the comments below. So first of all, what I've done, based on a recommendation somewhat of Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, who said that when he runs solo stuff, he likes to do it all analog. I have decided to switch to index cards. Now, you'll notice here I got a nice little card with my hobbit, and that came from the Face Folio. So this is a product you can grab it on drive-through. I will put a link, and basically you've got all different images here, various different types of species and classes, and each card is gendered female appearing and male appearing. So, I guess that's a dwarf. So you can, you have a mix of what you like. So what I've done is I've decided to humanize, as it would be, my characters by giving them all faces and using index cards. Now, I'll keep this as their main kind of character sheet, if you will, but I'm still going to use the record sheet below to kind of track as we run through the game. Because remember, with a large group like this playing solo, I don't want to be dealing with a bunch of character sheets, but at least I have it spread out here. Makes it a little easier to use. We've got our 4 characters. These 3, of course, are part of the original Fangs group, and they're being joined by the hobbit from the Foxes. I'm using color to code everything. So the Fangs are green, the Foxes are yellow. Right now, they're working together. So what we're going to do, though, is something a little bit different. Even though they have enough money to get horses, which was my original thought, and they would go back to where they were going, if you remember, their map is really far away from them. It's like way down here in the corner. So instead of doing that first, since there's only 3 of them, what I'm going to do is have them go on a short local adventure. Now, OD&D provides ideas for costs of finding rumors. And what I'm going to do here is, and of course it says the GM can make them true or false and all this. What I'm going to do, because I don't want to waste a whole lot of time, like I don't think it would be that fun to have my characters adventure out and then find nothing and come back. So I'm going to make all the rumors more or less true. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my price cost more for them. At least that's how I'm going to run it this first time. Partially because I need to catch back up, if you will, so I can have videos, and I don't want to have a whole bunch of videos with non-successes. I think we've had a lot of that in kind of the first chapter, if you will, and let's get some successes under our belts. So what we're going to do is it costs from 10 to 60 gold pieces to find a rumor. What I'm going to do is each of the characters that has gold, which are the 3 characters from the Fangs, because the hobbit is kind of going to ride along. He's not quite going to be a henchman. I'll give him full experience points, but he doesn't have a lot of money to invest. So basically, he's not part of the rumor process. Each of them is going to roll a d6, so 3d6, to see how much their rumor costs. I'm going to double it. So 2, which would be 4, so that's 40 gold pieces. 5, so he's paying 100 gold pieces for his. And 6, oh boy, okay, so 120. So I'll deduct that from their money, but that's what they paid for their rumors. They're each going to get one of these cards. I picked these up at GaryCon, actually, several years back, but you can grab them on Amazon. I'll put a link. These are side quest decks. There's all different styles, fantasy, there's Cthulhu ones, there's all kinds of stuff. Each card has a map on it, and then on the back is the quest. So what we're going to do here is I went through them. Some of them are really big and elaborate. I'm just going to kind of shuffle them up. Got my eyes closed. You can't really see that. I'm going to shuffle them up, and then I'm just going to draw the top 3. And those are the ones they're going to have to choose from, and we'll decide which one they choose to go on, and we'll go from there. Okay. All right, so we have these 3. Let me clean these off to the side. Let's take a look. So our dwarf here got this one. When the alchemist left on urgent business, it was expected that she would return. She hasn't, and she's the only one who knows the formula for the unusual potion. Now that potion is needed. Someone important needs the potion and has instructed the party to get it at any cost. This is not bad because this will be one of those situations. I'm not going to read the encounters yet. This is going to be one of those situations where they can actually know they're going to walk away with some cash. So maybe this is a good one. It costs them money to find the rumor, and they're going to have to go up and maybe negotiate for what they would get. But depending on the person, we might be able to luck out. Let's see what the second one is. A great warrior's body has gone missing from the small mausoleum in a town near where the great battle was held. A group of priests are attempting to create a powerful undead. Oh, that's interesting. Now, of course, the party does not have a cleric, so that might not be the one they'll go after. I don't want to say that they're cowards, but they're definitely not going to take unneeded risks. Finally, we have this one. It looks like a little tower here. That looks kind of like a Dyson Logos tower. A reclusive necromancer has died, and his old keep has been taken over by his former goblin servants. Let's see. The PCs get word of the necromancer's death and the treasures in his keep. Haha. You know what? To be honest, I feel like that's the best one. I have 2 magic users in the group who obviously would want that, and they're at the level where goblins are probably something that they feel like they can take. The one with the undead seems too risky for a group with no cleric, and the one with the alchemist is cool because you can get paid for it, but, you know, what's a 150 gold piece reward versus an entire keep full of treasure? So let's go for this guy. And they're still paying for all of them, of course. And what we're going to do is when we come back, depending on how long it takes them, I will roll a chance that the other rumors are still in existence and they might be able to follow up on the other adventures. But for now, let's just focus on the first one. Okay, so we've got this. The way I'm going to do this is it's going to be anywhere from 2 to 12 days away. I'm just going to go with days to make it simple, and then I'm going to figure out where it would be based on that. So I'm going to roll. Okay, it's 7 days away, and we know the party can move, 7 days, so you can move 3 hexes, so it's about 21 hexes away. So it's somewhere, and it's a reclusive necromancer. I'm going to say, and it makes it dangerous, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be over here in this swamp, unless there's another swamp that's closer. Yeah, that seems about right. Edge of the swamp sounds about right. It makes it kind of dangerous for the party to go to. Let's put something there. If I plop it here, I'm not going to count the days, but I know that'll take a long time because you've got to go. This is going to be fast, but then multiple days through the woods, and then the swamp itself, of course, is very slow going. So let's go with that. I think that makes it fun. Actually, make it a little bit further away. Let's put it right there. Haha. So there we go. It's right in the middle of the swamp at that merging of the rivers. They know where this tower is. There's rumors that the necromancer is there or has died and the goblins have taken over. They want to get in there and get that treasure before somebody else does. All right, so I did a little setup here. Basically, they bought a couple more mules. They already had 2, and there's 4 of them. So they're going to travel by mule, mostly because I decided that they might think the swamp would be difficult to travel in with horses. They didn't want to take a risk, where mules are pretty hardy. They don't go quite as fast. They move 5 hexes a day as opposed to 3, which is nice, but a horse would go 10 if it's a light horse. The other thing I did was I kind of did a quick look at this scenario here, some of the encounters, and I whipped up a little chart of random encounters for myself. I also whipped up a that said there was a creature released in the basement, so I rolled randomly on a chart that seemed appropriate for a Necromancer, and I got a Manticore, which is, yeah, they might be in trouble there. I'm going to put the spellbook down there, because I feel like the Necromancer spellbook is really the prize here. As much as it's not worth a lot of gold, for a group of magic users, having access to spells all the ways up to what a Necromancer would have, which I think is 5th level spells, is pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, they wouldn't be able to use them right away, but they'll have them when they level up, as opposed to having to search around and pay for and such spells. So I think it's a really good prize for them. That's what they're really after. But at the same time, the goblins have picked up some treasure. There's also a treasure map, which could be very useful if they find that. And they're probably going to go in there, get what they can, and get out. They have bought 3 weeks' rations each, because having learned from the last time and almost starving. So they're basically ready to go. We're going to head out from town. We're going to head to the Necromancer's lair, and then we're going to delve the dungeon. Okay, so for this part, if just in case this is the first time you're looking at it, I do kind of a combination of outdoor survival and OD&D, which is basically what's in OD&D. I'm going to roll a d6 at the beginning of the day. This is going to tell me if they're lost or not. That's based on where they are. So they're in the clear. I'm going to roll a d6. I got a 1. That means they're lost. So for whatever reason, they start the day off going the wrong direction. Who knows why? Maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe it's early. Maybe a road's closed. Being lost in OD&D simply means that you must move 1 hex in a random direction, then you can correct yourself. So I'm going to keep that 1 to the side for a second, because we're going to use that. I'm going to roll another d6 to see what direction. So 3. 3 is basically back off the map. So what I'm going to say is it's going to cost them a hex this way, and then a hex back to get where they are. So they've already expended 2 of their hexes, and they can go 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, they end the day on a clear hex. I check back at that first dice I rolled, which was a 1, and I look under encounter. I have a 6. There's no encounter. There may be a time where you might not get lost, but there might be an encounter and vice versa. So this is why I hold that 1 die. So that's the end of day 1. I'm going to mark off 1 ration, and we're going to move forward. Now, they can move, on the 6th day they have to rest. So we'll just keep going with this procedure until they either get there or they have to rest. I'm in the clear. I rolled a 1 again. Wow, okay, they're lost again. So we're going to roll 4. They're going to go down this way. So they go down 1. And remember, they got 5 movement. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And where they want to be is there, but they can't move into the trees because it costs 2 movement. So they have to stop there. Now, again, I rolled a 1. They're in the clear. No random monster. 2 days have passed. Now, and remember, they left on April 15th. That's important. Okay, so day 3, we're going to roll 4. Okay, they don't get lost. And now they're going to head out into the forest. Now, again, they're heading there. Each hex in the forest costs 2 movement. They have 5 movement. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I save that extra 1, so they've got 1 in spare. But now it's the end of the day. I'm going to look at that 4 again on woods and see if there's an encounter. And sure enough, there is. So we're going to have our first encounter here on day 3. So I don't forget, I'm going to mark off that ration. And let's go from here. We're going to look under the woods section, and I'm going to roll a d8. I'm going to move this over here. Well, I'll keep it where it is. I'm going to roll a d8. 4. I laugh because I know 4 is lycanthropes. It's always lycanthropes. And for some reason, these guys are always running into lycanthropes. All right, so we've got lycanthropes in the woods. We're going to roll to see what kind they are. It's a d4. I feel like I'm reaching across here, but 2. Okay, so they are wereboars. Okay, so wereboars, might be bad news. The party is always going to try to evade things if they can, because that makes the most sense. So we know there's wereboars. So we want to establish 2 more things. Number 1, how many? And number 2, are they surprised? And then we can figure out evasion. So if we look under lycanthropes, there's from 2 to 20 lycanthropes encountered. We always use these numbers when we're outside. Okay, 11. In a lot of ways, you want more here, because you'll see for the evasion purposes. So there's 11 out of 20 lycanthropes. So that's about 55%, which is not the best for them. So there's 55% of the total that there could be. Now, before we figure anything else out, let's make the check to see if they are surprised. So are the lycanthropes surprised? I'm going to roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, they are. They are not. Is the party surprised? On a 1 or a 2, they are. This is bad if they're surprised. They're not. Okay. There's no surprise, and they're in the woods. Let's move to evasion. Our party size is going to be 4. And the reason why it's not 8 is because they're riding the mules. So if they're mounted, they count as 1. So our party size is 4, which still puts us here, would be the same anyways. And we're 26 to 60%. So we have a 50% chance of evasion. Now, for the purposes of this, nobody's faster than anybody else. A mule's speed is roughly the same as a human's. It's the same as basically a draft horse, which I can check it, but yeah, draft horse is 12. Our lycanthrope movement is variable, but they're definitely not twice as fast. So unless the speed is twice as fast, it doesn't affect the evasion. However, woods do add 25% chance. So I've got a 75% chance to evade the wereboars rather. Oh, before I forget, let's roll to see if it's their lair. This is important for future stuff. Lycanthropes are 15% chance to be in their lair. Otherwise, they're roaming. 50. So no, it's not in their lair. Let's see if I avoid them. I have a 75% chance. 13. Could use that roll earlier. Okay, so with a 13, we see them coming. Neither group is surprised, but they're too far away. We kind of go down a quick way. They decide it's not worth it. However you want to narrate it. There is no encounter, basically. In the end, we evaded them. And it doesn't cost us anything extra because we didn't fail that first evasion check. That's the end of day 3. Okay, day 4. Remember, I have 1 extra movement point here. I'm going to cover my characters for a second so I can roll here without reaching over the screen. I think you guys can see that. Yep. 6. Okay, again, this is not great. Okay, so with a 6 in the woods, I am not lost. So we're going to go. Now, here's where I might want to be clever. Now, with a 6, I'm going to have an encounter no matter where I am. So I'm just going to go in the direction I want to go. Although swamps probably have worse monsters, but we're going to go for it. So 1, 2. Now the swamp takes up 3 movement. So 3, 4, 5. And I had 1 more movement point, but again, that's not going to do me any good. So I'm basically in the swamp at the end of the day. A 6 means that there's an encounter. Yay. Okay. Let's go for swamp encounter. We're going to roll a d8 to see what kind of monster it is. It is 3. Giant. Now, I've made the mistake before of just saying, oh, it's giant, but it's not a giant. It's a giant type. I do not know why they're called giant types, but they are. And we're going to look here. That could be anything from an actual giant to a troll or a kobold. It could be anything like that. So we're going to roll a d12. Somehow it could also be a Balrog. Let's hope that it's not that. 2. Goblins. Oh, okay. Well, goblins are really interesting, right? So there's goblins here. We've encountered goblins right near the fort. Okay, so, normally I'm just following this procedural, but let's get a little funky here. Let's say this. They're so close, they're within 1 hex of our destination. There's a chance these goblins are part of that group and just a patrol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a 50-50 chance. I'm going to take this purple die and this clear die. If the clear die is higher, they're part of the patrol for the thing. If it's lower, if the purple die is higher, then they are not. They're just different goblins. No, they're not. They're different goblins. Okay. So we've got another group of goblins close by. Interesting. I wonder what the story could be there. So let's look up goblins. Goblins and kobolds, there can be anywhere from 40 to 400 of them. And there's a 50% chance they're in their lair. So what we're going to do is we're going to go. So 40 to 400, the simplest way, for the purposes of this, is I just do a d10 times 40. If we're rolling up the actual layer later on, then we'll roll it more precisely. 7. Okay, so that's a lot of goblins. All right, so 7. And we know that's 70%, so I don't even need to know how many goblins there are at this exact moment. But I do know that it's more than 60%, so that's good for me because more is good for evasion. The next thing we want to know is, are they in their lair? 50-50 chance. They are not. Okay. So there's a group of, a lot, 280 goblins moving through this swamp. Where are they going? Maybe they're going to that tower and we're under a time crunch. This could be kind of interesting. But now let's jump back to evasion. We know they're not in their lair. Again, there are 4 of us, so we fall into this category. But now we're over 60%. We have a 70% chance to evade them if neither one's surprised. I mean, I don't know how 280 goblins could surprise us, but let's see if we surprise them. I'm going to say they can't surprise us. So are they surprised? No. Okay, so we do have to roll for evasion. Surprise would mean automatic evasion. All right, so we have 70% chance. Let's see if we evade these goblins. 4. Yep, we do. All right, so 280 goblins come sloshing through. They do not go to the tower. Maybe they set up camp and we move out of the way, whatever it is. Remember, these hexes are 5 miles, so we stay in the hex. We just move a bit. Now, we've traveled 4 days, and at the end of 6 days, we have to rest for 1 day, but I think we're good. We can get to the dungeon this next day, explore it, and then we'll rest after. We don't want to rest in the swamp if we can avoid it. Although I guess we're going to have to one day. Probably should have thought about that. All right, so here we go. We're going to move. We're going to roll, first of all. We're starting in the swamp. 3. Ooh, that might be getting lost. 1 through 3, we're lost. Fantastic. So we roll a random direction. 4, which is this way onto this river. And of course, that eats up 3 movement points, and we only have 2 more. So we basically have to stay where we are. The remaining 2 that we have, though, we can add to tomorrow's if we need to. So once again, we're in the swamp. We're going to check. Of course, because we're lost and we stayed where we were, we do not have an encounter, which is good for us. But then now 5 days have gone by. At this point, I think I'm going to make a executive decision. No, I'm not. I'm going to move. So hopefully we're going to roll. 4. Okay, 4 means we're not lost. And what I'm going to do is I got 2. So I've got 5 plus 2. I have 7 movement. I'm going to retreat a bit. And that sounds silly, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm doing this for 2 reasons. 1 is I need to rest. I'd rather rest in the plains, right? But 2 is I already know, again, it's a little meta, but I know that 4 is an encounter in both, actually it's not an encounter in the woods. I could have stayed there. But it is an encounter in the swamp. And I did not want to take a chance of staying there because I know it's not an encounter in the clear. So I probably could have stayed in the woods, but it's okay. I am where I am. Day ends, no encounter. That's the end of day 5. So day 6, I'm just going to stay where I am. And I'm going to basically have to roll an encounter. Obviously, I can't get lost. 1, it's good that I'm moving. I don't get lost. And the day goes by. And that's the first 6 days. Okay, so now we're on. I probably should have done, I'm going to confuse myself here, but that's okay. That's 6 days, 1 day of rest, and then we're going to get going again. Let's see if we can get back into these woods. 2. There's a bit of a strategy here, right? You've got to so again, we have 5 movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't take the 5th move because of where we are. We end in the woods, but out of 2 in the woods, we have no encounter, so we're good. Next, we roll again. 4. 4 in the woods is not lost nor an encounter, though 4 will be an encounter in the swamp. So if I move into the swamp, I'm going to have an encounter. So I have to decide if I want to risk that. No matter what, I'm going to have an encounter eventually. So I think I might as well just do it. And we're back at that hex where those goblins were, and we got an encounter in the swamp. Let's check this off first. Let's hope we can avoid it and then not get lost tomorrow. Swamps are tough to go through. All right, so we're going to roll to see what it is. It's a D8. 3. Is 3 goblins again? Well, 3 is a giant type again. Yeah, it is. All right. Again, if I was running this, it would make sense it was just goblins, but we're doing this randomly, so we'll see what happens. Plus, those goblins weren't layered there, so they were just passing by. It's been a couple of days. 10. Ooh. Oh, 10 is Pegasi. That's a lawful creature. So that's interesting. I don't think any of my characters would be able to, we're low level. We're not going to be able to capture or train or whatever a Pegasi. So we are just going to basically ignore them and hope that they're going to ignore us. The way I normally do this is, actually we'll avoid them. But if we fail the evasion, then I'm not going to move and we'll just have an encounter. Because again, they're lawful. And the thing is that, so from 1 to 12 of them, they're not in their lair ever. I mean, they're only 2 hit dice. You know what? Let's see what happens. Let's risk this. We're all lawful. They're lawful. There's this thing going on with this Necromancer. We're going to actually encounter them. We're going to stay there, and we're going to roll a reaction for the Pegasi. We're going to move up on them. We don't speak the language, but we'll speak to them using the lawful tongues. We know Pegasi are lawful, and we're going to say to them, actually, let me check that. Do we know that? Yeah, they're definitely lawful. Okay, so we're going to, I'm going to have to check the monster description to see what's going to happen, but I am going to try to do it. So they're going to basically try to wave down the Pegasi with some of their grain or whatever they have for the mules, and see if they can interact, speaking to them gently in the lawful tongue. I'm looking it up now in the book here. Pegasi. Winged horses are wild and shy, being most difficult to capture. They will serve only lawful characters, and once captured, Pegasi equal to any horse in battle, for they fight as heavy horses. Okay, so they're shy, and they are wild. So we're going to do 2 things here. First of all, it's likely that they're just going to flee when we try to speak to them. They're not going to attack us because they're lawful, and we're speaking lawful to them. I'm going to do my little thing here again. I'm going to roll 2 white dice, 1 purple. If the purple is the highest of the dice, the Pegasi will land, and I'll get a regular reaction roll from them. Otherwise, they're going to fly away. Ah, it's the highest die. Okay, so we got a 5. Okay, so the Pegasi land at our lawful interactions. Funny enough, the dwarf, I believe, is the highest charisma with a 15. And they're going to, so Sanguine, who looks very joyful, is going to try to interact with these Pegasi and see if we can get an allegiance going on. With the Pegasi, we'd be able to fly right to where we need to go and land on the top of the tower. That's kind of what we're going to ask for, if they'll take us out of this terrible place. Okay, so I'm going to use this reaction table, which is the more nuanced one, basically for non-player characters, because I feel like Pegasi are real smart. And even though he's got a high charisma, I'm not going to give any kind of bonus to this roll, because this is a pretty unusual thing for a dwarf to call down a Pegasi. So 2d6, let's hope for a high number here, guys. 11. Accepts offer. Okay, so we, the party, flags down these Pegasi, and we tell them in the lawful tongue that we have heard of this Necromancer's tower that's being taken over by goblins and evil creatures, and we are basically trapped in the swamp, and we're going to ask for the Pegasi's help to fly us to the tower and just drop us off there, because I think that's a reasonable request without going too far. Now, unfortunately, if we do this, we're going to have to leave our mules. I think it's a good trade-off. We're going to we'll leave the mules here in the swamp, or the fort. Are we in the swamp? Yeah. We will actually, since they had an 11, which is really high, I'm going to say the Pegasi will be okay with us bringing the mules back to the edge of the forest and kind of creating a little pen for them or whatever, so that we can come back to them. And I'll have a chance that they're still there. We'll roll a wandering monster each day to see if the mules get killed. So we'll keep track of that. But the Pegasi are going to fly us up, so I'm actually going to make a note here that that's what we're doing. And the Pegasi are going to fly us in the morning to the Necromancer's tower, to which we will land on top and begin our dungeon delve. After that, hopefully, we'll be able to come back out and get the mules. If not, it was probably worth it, because there's a lot of dangerous stuff in the swamp, and sometimes you got to take that risk. If you've been enjoying these, please do consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and you can check the show notes below. You can find a link to my Discord server if you want to join up over there and join the conversation as it would be, and a link to my Patreon if you'd like to support the channels. In any case, I'll talk to you soon.